our podcast is about you, your journey in music. And we'll talk about your new record coming out and the Melodian Music House and everything else you have going on.
Okay. Sounds great.
If that's cool with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Very, very cool. So first of all, talk to me about where you were born and raised.
Oh, wow. Well, it all started. um, I was born and raised in Eugene, Oregon. Oh,
Okay.
I'm wearing a Oregon sweatshirt here.
Oh,
So
very cool.
very proud to be from the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, and that was a while ago.
Yes. Well, that's awesome. Born and raised Eugene, Oregon, and talk to me about how you got into music.
Okay. So, my mom is a musician and a music educator. My grandpa he's an interesting guy. He was a deputy sheriff, but also a musician. And he played Dixieland, and there was music in the house all the time, whether it was like vinyls, playing on the record player, or everybody harmonizing. So I think for me, it was just kind of a done deal. I grew up without a dad for the first 7 years of my life. My father passed before I was 2, and it sounds like therapy already. But the reason why I mentioned that is because I think my mom and I like seriously bonded with music. Like that was our connector, and I think that is something that I carry with me always now. And she's still around, and we always talk about music, and we always talk about music education.
I love that. So she's a music teacher as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And what did she play, if you don't mind me asking?
Yes, okay. She's a beautiful singer. She also accompanied herself on the guitar, and she played piano too. So very talented. She was doing that from an early age too. I guess it was probably because of my grandpa.
Okay. And your grandpa also was a musician as well. Did he teach it, or is he just
No, he was self-taught, and just totally went by ear. Very, very talented, but really had no schooling, no training at all.
Wow. So I did read that you started singing at a very early age, but violin has been a big part of your musical journey. What made you get into violin? And was that the first instrument you learned aside from singing?
I think I learned the very basics on guitar before.
Oh, okay.
And then I did take piano lessons earlier, like maybe at 7. But I found a violin in the attic, and I brought it down, and I was like, Mom, whose is this, and can I have it? And turns out it was my older sister's. She'd like pretended to lose it.
Oh, where did it go?
I can't practice. I can't go to lessons anymore because I lost my violin. Sure. Of course, I was like the little snotty tattletale, So I got to play the violin. Obviously I wanted to do it, so my mom enrolled me in lessons right away. And so back to Eugene, Oregon. Luckily, I was growing up in a place that had a very rich culture for arts. It had the University of Oregon, also the Eugene Symphony, and there's just like so many amazing teachers and musicians and artists in that community.
Mm-hmm. How many instruments did Mom play? Did she teach you how to play violin?
No, she did not. Although she was a substitute teacher for strings. God love her. I don't even know how anyone would substitute teach anything, but let alone like music.
Music, sure.
Oh God, terrible. So she did not teach me how to play violin, but it was just inherent. Like she taught me some stuff on the piano and on the guitar and how to sing. So I already had developed the ear for it. And then once I got into lessons, it just was like, very quick.
Very quick. Yeah. Did you play in the school orchestra? And I know you got a scholarship to USC for violin, but were you in like the middle school? Like, did you just jump through the entire kind of process of school band?
Yeah, I mean, again, so lucky to have lived when I lived and where I lived, because in 3rd grade there was already a string, like an all district string orchestra.
Oh, wow.
So I would play every week, and there were teachers everywhere. Like my first private teacher was also a cheerleader. She was like violin teacher and cheerleader. Sometimes she's teaching in her like cheer
outfit.
Wow, you're like superwoman.
Sure.
but yes, and then Eugene also has, and still has, because it's like 85 years of this, they still have the Eugene Youth Symphony and Eugene Junior Symphony before that. So I
Wow.
grew up just totally immersed. And there was also smaller chamber music opportunities. And in junior high and high school, I had these amazing teachers that were teaching string ensemble. And it was just, I was in heaven. I loved it there.
Mm-hmm. When did you start writing music? Is it around the same age, or did that
Yeah.
not come till later?
I waited and waited and waited. And I really didn't seriously start writing songs until I was in my like 20s.
Oh, wow.
So when things happened for me in my debut album, I hadn't been
Mm-hmm.
writing that long. So it was like a little bit of a quick study, and I felt really like, whoa.
Sure.
That was really intimidating.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So how, you get into USC, and was that based off of what you were doing in high school? Like, how did that scholarship happen?
Oh, I love these questions. So I have kind of a funny story. Like I'd been studying and practicing a lot. Like I was very devoted. I knew I was going to be a musician of some kind, but classical music was still kind of not my, like I just felt like it was so confining, right? So you have to
Mm-hmm.
play it this way. And I was always more emotive, and my marks in school were always like great emotion, technique, maybe not so much. Anyway, I'll just tell you this little story because I like to tell how the turn of events happened.
I would love to hear it. Thank you so much for sharing.
I went to a prestigious music camp in the summer called Interlochen
Okay.
Academy of the Arts, and it's also an academy for like all the year school. But I went for the summer camp, and it was really expensive. And I went on the violin, and I practiced hard, and it was just before my senior year, and I was also 17. So Interlochen has really strict rules. Like
Mm-hmm.
you got to sign a contract to like, I will, follow all these rules. And
Oh,
I
wow.
wasn't so into rules. I had a little bit of a rebellious streak, a little fire. And so even though I was like doing really well, practicing 8 hours a day, getting up at 5, practicing and loving it, I made a mistake and I got caught smoking a cigarette with some of the university girls.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and I think I was tipped off. I think somebody, told on us. But
Somebody tattled on you?
yeah, they tattled. And Interlochen is really known for its strictness, and it doesn't give you any passes. So I got sent home after 3 weeks, and it was supposed to be 8 weeks. It was supposed to be like a 2-month camp. I got sent home after 3 weeks, and I was devastated.
Oh my gosh.
And I have to say, they were so mean. They even like grounded me for 2 days while they could try to find a flight for me to get out. Like they grounded me to my cabin. It was, I thought, pretty terrible.
Sure. Like
Yeah.
for smoking a cigarette?
At age 17. I mean, I get it though. Like I had to come to terms with it. I broke their rules.
Mhm.
But
Sure.
for years, they'd send me these letters like, hey, it's time for summer camp. Have you thought about joining? And I would always be like, really?
Never. Yeah, right, right.
And I have this realization though that I mean, I was devastated. I was embarrassed. I was like so upset that I practiced 4 hours a day for the rest of the summer. I'm gonna show them. And I practiced
Instead
doing
of 8. Instead of 8, you cut it down to 4.
yeah,
Okay.
right. So okay, 8 might have been a exaggeration. Okay. So I did 4 hours a day, and that I think is what got me the scholarship. Like when I auditioned for USC, I think my playing had improved so much because of that. I mean, I don't know if I would have gotten in if I hadn't really practiced like that.
Uh-huh.
I also won this, second place in the state solo competition, and I really have Interlochen to thank, because it really just lit a fire under my ass. Like I am
Sure.
show these people that I'm not what they think I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you ever like I would have just first of all, USC obviously didn't they weren't flipping through your paperwork and they're like, oh, were you caught smoking a cigarette at 17?
Definitely not.
Not only that, I would send them the letter of your scholarship, oh hey, remember when you kicked me out?
I know. Well, I do have a little bit of retribution now. Not just because like I became a star one day, but I
Right.
invited last summer or the summer pre-COVID to come to Interlaken, not for strings, but to teach a songwriting course. And so I went back to the campus for the first time in whatever, how many years that was. And I walked around and I was just like, see, I'm teaching here now. Like you, and nobody from that era was even there, but I just walked around and I kind of made peace with the place. I was like, okay, like I was dumb, but here I am. And
Sure. It would have
yeah.
been awesome if you just rolled in smoking a cigarette. You're like, what's up?
Even for the teachers, they make it, like at one point I thought I had to wear a uniform, like when I was teaching there, because they're really, they got their rules.
Uh-huh.
But it's for whatever reason is I'm not gonna.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like just like a discipline type
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, discipline thing.
So you go to USC and you go in as a violin player. What was that like?
Well, my violin teacher was Alice Schoenfeld of the Schoenfeld sisters, and she was like 140 years old, and she was Austrian, and I loved her. But she did tell me, she's like, "Thank God you play the violin the way you do, because your SAT scores were so bad that you wouldn't have, like this is your saving grace." And so, I that was cool. It was hard to be in LA, because that's a weird part of town. I don't know if like it's
Yeah, I'm from Southern California.
oh,
I get it.
So I lived off campus, and that was weird. And
Uh-huh.
I was young again. Like I feel like if I could do everything over again, I would take things more seriously. So I, I mean, they also call it the University of Spoiled Children, and I didn't
Oh.
mix with those people, but I kind of partied a little bit. So I wasn't, I'd go to my lessons hungover. Some of my best lessons actually were when I was hungover, but I didn't take it as seriously. I regret, that a little bit. And then, I realized like, wow, I don't want to be a symphony player. I love playing the violin.
Uh-huh.
I'm not good enough to become a soloist. And so I'm going to be sitting in the back of the second violin section in some like symphony somewhere. And I knew what that meant. That meant like playing the same pieces over and over again and not really having that, I wanted flash. I was a singer as well. And I just felt like, you know what? I've got more of a fire in me. And I think singing is where I can express that fire. Then I transferred to Berklee College of Music to go
Which
sing jazz.
Well, okay. So you didn't even go there for violin.
No, I continued to play a little bit, but it eventually became more of a secondary thing, and I wanted to sing.
Were you always still singing, like, I mean, throughout the years, like, or was it mainly focused? I'm sure your main focus at that time was violin, but were you in the choir, a chorus, or were you ever? I mean, were you?
Yeah, like again,
Okay.
you had so many opportunities, and in junior high and high school, we had like vocal jazz. I mean, we had some quality. I might be biased, but I do feel like there was some really quality teachers, and these, we would win these championships and stuff. But I learned so much about singing through these teachers and experiences, and so I was singing the whole time. I didn't really want to take classical voice lessons because, again, that felt too like confining. But like for me, my freedom in singing was just kind of, it was a little unwieldy, and I don't ever know if I learned how to sing properly with the technique, but that wasn't my interest. I wanted to just, I don't know, kind of share my message with my voice. So Berklee became a place, like I was dabbling in jazz. I wanted to scat sing and stuff, but then I started looking at other ways of other kinds of music.
Was that the music that you were into, like growing up, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I liked all music. My mom, again, she had such a wide taste. We would listen to Stevie Wonder, and then vocal jazz groups, and then classical and gospel. So it was like a really great kind of education to. I just loved all music.
Okay, because I know you did like a few years later down the line, you ended up covering like a Zeppelin song, which is pretty. I mean, the cover is awesome, but I wasn't sure if you kind of came from that realm, but you were also just so good at violin. But it sounds like you were pretty. I mean, your spectrum of music was massive at the time, anyway.
I think I was a sponge, and
Yeah.
I also had these little inside jokes. So I think doing a Zeppelin song on the violin for me was an inside joke. It was like, not only do people think I'm John Bonham's daughter, but
Oh, sure, yeah.
and I'm like, why not just spread that rumor further?
That's amazing.
But also like, hey, the violin doesn't normally fit in this kind of genre. Well, let's make it fit, you know? And I like being ironic like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. When you transferred to Berkeley, was there another like kind of audition process to get in? And like, how do you approach them and say, yeah, I've been, playing violin forever. I've done this like, well, I got a full ride to USC.
Yeah.
I want to be a singer.
Yeah. Well, that was a long time ago. I think things are different now, but the process to get into Berkeley was like nothing. Like I think I may have sent a demo tape, and then they were like, "Okay, cool," and then they gave me a small scholarship, but they admitted me. I don't even think I had to audition.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I've heard like it's interesting to me because I'll speak to people, a lot of people that have went to Berkeley, and it's either I sent a demo tape and they let me in, or it was like they didn't even like ask. It was like they just let me in, or it was like, oh, I had a sight read on the spot. I had to do this, that, and the other thing.
Oh yeah.
So it's just like it seems like their their entry process has kind of been up and down throughout the years.
I think so. I mean, I wonder, I hope it's better now, but when I was there, it seemed, I guess I didn't roll with the right crowd, but I felt like a lot of people were just learning their instruments. It was felt like a trade school. I wasn't feeling like it was challenging at all.
Okay. And while there, that's when you started to write?
Yeah, that's when I started to write music.
And what sparked the interest in writing your own music?
I was in a wedding band for a while after that, and also singing jingles. And I had a boyfriend who was a really great drummer in the wedding band, and he also was in a bunch of different bands in Boston. Like that, this is when the indie rock scene was really, really thriving. And he's the guy that kind of encouraged me. He's like, okay, you can sing other people's songs and that's fine, but this is not what you want to do, right? And I was like, no, I definitely do not want to be a wedding singer for the rest of my life.
Sure.
And so he's like, well, why don't you pick up the guitar and write a song and challenge yourself? You know 3 chords, right? Yeah, I know 3 chords. Okay, well, why don't you just write a song with 3 chords and see what you come up with? And that's kind of how it started. I wrote a terrible song. I can't remember what it was called. It was called So or something. And it wasn't very good, but it got me thinking about, how I want to express myself in music. And definitely, with classical music, I was always regurgitating stuff that was already written. And with, singing pop tunes at weddings, that was, not gonna be the path. So I started writing these songs, and the crazy part though was that within a couple of years I'd written Mother just in those first couple of years of writing.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, so it was kind of like an overnight, like, whoa, now I'm a songwriter. And that led to a lot of pressure because I didn't really have like a back catalog. I didn't have experience as a songwriter.
But you put out an EP prior to that debut record. And
Well,
that still kind of had some, I mean, you won what, best single from the Boston Phoenix. I mean, so you had some validation that you were a pretty good songwriter, right? Prior to Mother.
I have a secret about that.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know. Back in those days, it was early 90s, it wasn't considered cool to just come right out of the box with a hit song and like jam it down people's throats with like major label. It was cooler to have a backstory. It was cooler to be like, having these EPs before your major release. So my record label, Island Records, subsidized and put out like, it was a real EP, but it was a fake indie. So they got an indie label called Cherry Disc, but it was funded by Island Records. It was all like a ploy to make it look as though I had some kind of history.
Wow.
And I don't know why, but that's why I called it the Liverpool Sessions, because it was some kind of inside joke about like, oh yeah, I've done all this stuff, and
Like, oh, I went to, yeah, I was in the Abbey Road studios and I was super inspired. So I came home and wrote the Liverpool Sessions.
exactly. And I've been around forever, and it was not true at all. And I don't even know if it really helped or worked, but it was cool. It was a cool, like, it's a rarity now, and that's fun to have a rarity.
Sure. So okay, with Mother though, so was that really the first thing you presented to people? And then how did Island Records find this song, and how did you get, your career started that way?
Yeah. Well, I put together this demo tape like back when I had an 8-track cassette recorder, and I put together 3 songs, and one of them was Mother. Another was a song called Dandelion, which I think is the one that got the best single on the original EP on Liverpool Sessions. And then another song called The One,
Mm-hmm.
which is on The Burdens of Being Upright. And it was just, I still have the demo tape somewhere, and it's great. It has handmade cassette, like, what is it called? A J card?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I put like stickers and handwriting, and that circulated in the Boston scene. And I barely had a band together, and all of a sudden I'm getting these gigs, and then that tape circulated, and I won some kind of award in the Boston Phoenix newspaper. And then literally it was like overnight I was getting all of these calls from record labels. And then I immediately got a publicist, and then everybody from New York was just flying up to wine and dine me, and I had like a 3-song demo, and it was amazing and exciting.
I was gonna
And
say that must have been exciting, validating for your, all the hard work you'd put into it, and then now you're writing songs, and
yeah,
people are interested. I
yeah,
mean, wow, what a big moment.
yeah, it was really, really cool.
And then, but there's so many artists that will have that moment, and then the single doesn't do anything.
Right.
Let alone your single does so well, goes gold.
Yeah.
You get Grammy nominated, like 2 Grammy nominations on the same song. I mean,
Mm.
how overwhelming was that?
It was amazing. I mean, God, it was a lot of work, and I was overwhelmed quite a bit. Like, they just start. It's like you just have no time for yourself anymore, and
Mhm.
you're constantly on a tour bus, or you're flying somewhere to play a gig, and 10 months into a year later you're still doing it. And I remember kind of freaking out, and now I regret it, but I had to cancel some tours because I was literally going out of my mind, and I canceled South America, and everyone's like, oh, don't worry, you'll get back, and I never did. And then when the Grammys came, I mean, that was incredible. When I got the phone call, I remember thinking, wow, this is crazy. The funny dichotomy of these moments are like when I got that phone call, I was sitting in my pajamas eating cornflakes, or like when my manager called and said, like, congratulations, your first week of sales. I can't remember now. It was a lot for the day, and it
Uh-huh.
was monumental for these days, but like 20,000 in 1 week or something. And I was like, again, in my
Wow.
pajamas in Watertown,
Yeah.
Massachusetts. But the Grammys was odd. It was really weird. I was so nervous. I went to the early red carpet thing, and I was hanging out, and I heard them practicing on stage, and Elvis Costello and Burt Bacharach were the 2 announcers that announced my category for
Wow.
best female vocal. And I was listening to them do their sound check, and they went through the whole thing, and they announced, and then the winner is, and then they said my name in sound check. So I was like, holy shit, oh my God,
Right.
what
I
is.
won.
So I was like really nervous, but excited. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get up there. What am I gonna say? And how do I look? And we go through the whole evening, and I'm sitting there, and I'm behind Aretha Franklin, and there's Diana Ross and stuff, and I'm sitting there waiting, and my category comes up, and my heart's pounding, and then they announce it, and it's not me, it's Sheryl Crow.
Mhm.
And it was so weird because all of the blood just rushed up to my head. I kind of felt relieved, but then I also felt the biggest headache I've ever felt. It was like my heart was pounding in my head because of all of this pent up nervous energy, and then all of a sudden it was like, boom, so I was like, what? Um, the rest of the night was interesting. I got to meet my hero, Stevie Wonder, and I cried all
Wow.
over him. But at night when I went to bed and when it was quiet, you know, like in this weird dichotomy of when you're kind of famous or about to be famous, and then all of a sudden you're in your hotel room and it's quiet. I did have this feeling. I was like, it's over. And I know this sounds
Really?
really sad, but I was like, that's it. That
You
was,
felt defeated just
yeah.
from the one, but because
Yeah.
you were on that stage, so to speak, you know, the highest level of people are striving for, and then
Right.
it doesn't happen, and you
Yeah.
definitely got your hopes up, like, oh my gosh, Elvis Costello said my name, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It was
yeah,
also,
what it
I knew that the industry was already changing. I had already seen a lot of shifts and things that were not looking good in
Mhm.
the music in general, and also at my label. And so I knew that if I hadn't, since I hadn't gotten the award, I knew all of their attention would turn to someone else.
would
I just knew that
shift.
how the nature of that business is.
Sure, sure. And was that like once you came up to your second record, was it
Yeah.
even harder to kind of, were you still kind of in that funk of the Grammy thing? I mean, I don't know. Like I would think that like, okay, the attention shifting, now I got to go try to prove myself again. That must have been a ton of pressure.
Well, it was that combined with like there were mergers, like these corporate mergers, and so then my label just changed. The whole face of the label changed. All of the people I knew and trusted had left, and now all these guys coming in with cigars, and I don't hear it hit, and
Right, right.
or Cohen comes in from Def Jam, and now we're like Island Def Jam, and I was in that funk, but I was trying to still kind of write a good album,
Uh-huh.
and it it was so delayed. That album, the second album, was so delayed. It was 4 years later, and so that in itself, with such a fickle business, and I had, for me, my problem and also blessing was that I had a radio hit, but I didn't have the moment, like the steady momentum
Mhm.
of just consistency. I didn't have consistency. So 4 years later, my fans were already onto something else. And then, unfortunately, 4 years later, what was on what was on the radio was Limp Bizkit,
Sure.
Korn, Slipknot, whatever. All of these bands
Yeah,
that,
like it was the next phase of what became like alternative, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah. And there was a real pendulum swing back from like women, the age of Lilith Fair, to like door slam. Now it's like, jugga 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 jugga, angry, Cookie Monster rock, whatever.
Right. Sure. But and during that time though, you were kind of working with what, the BEP, but I mean, you were doing Blue Man Group. Like, tell me about that. You even like, what's this tie to Aerosmith? I'd love to hear about that.
Oh wow, you go deep. Yeah, so I sent released my second album, and then that, we toured a lot, but it didn't do what we hoped. And so then I started to kind of come to terms with like, okay, what's really happening here, and what's important to me. So I wanted to make people happy and not bitch about the music business in my songs anymore. And I really was doing that a lot. A lot of my songs on the second album were like, my manager doesn't get me, and the music business wants to make me look like a whore, whatever. So,
Sure.
so I decided to change, my whole perspective of what I was doing. September 11th happened. I got dropped from Island Records. I got a divorce. So things were just different. But then certain things would fall into my lap, like, oh, an opportunity to sing with Aerosmith on their album, Honkin' on Bobo. And so I went into the studio and sang with them. We have a little connection because of Boston. Oh, and
Oh, sure.
yeah. And they asked me to open for them on their Mamakin. They had that rock club that they opened on Lansdowne Street called Mamakin,
Uh-huh.
and they asked me to be the opening band for that. So we had a
Wow.
little relationship, and they're nice guys. Steven Tyler's a
Yeah. I
nice.
love that performance they did where they played like on their old like apartment complex.
Oh
Have
yeah,
you ever seen that show? Like, yeah, I think they played like on the roof of it. It was some crazy like free thing they did. I was like, that's so awesome.
Yeah, they're funny. They're just funny guys, but meant well. I mean, we were sitting around. I remember this one moment where we were done recording, and they're like little boys. They're like little boys who live in a tour bus, and so they had all this fart humor. They had a little sample keyboard, like one of those really cheap Casio.
Oh yeah.
And I made the fart sound, and we sat around for like 45 minutes laughing hysterically at the fart sounds on the Casio.
That's funny. That is so funny.
Yeah.
And with that BEP, I mean, from what I read, you were only hoping to sell a few hundred copies of the thing, and it goes to 12,000 or.
Yeah. Well, that was from the help of Blue Man Group. So when I went on tour with them as their featured singer and violinist, at that time it was 2003 now, and I didn't have management, I didn't have a label, and I didn't have anything, no, promotion or anything. So they basically took me under their wing, and they're amazing, generous people. They put me on their tour bus. They even paid for my band, my trio, to be on their tour bus. So we're taking up space on the tour bus. We're eating their food. They'd put us up in hotels. Each of us had our own hotel room, and sometimes that was seasons. Like they really, and then they had me do an opening set for the big crazy rock concert, which did not even like musically mesh, but I wasn't gonna say anything. I'm like, cool.
Sure.
I played in these arenas, and they let me sell at the merch table. And yeah, like people go out, and I'd meet people, and I sold I made like $90,000 or something on my own without having to pay any commission. And that funded my next album. So those are the lucky breaks,
Yeah. And did that funded the B album or Blink the Brightest?
That funded Blink the Brightest.
Okay. And then didn't you get another label opportunity there?
Yeah. Then after Blink was finished and recorded, then I spoke to the people at Rounder Records.
Okay.
And they put that album out. Yeah.
Wow. And then with that record, I mean, I'm reading like some of the highlights you got to play on the Jay Leno and then like Craig Ferguson. Were those the first times you had a chance to do that, or were you able to play on like late shows when Mother came out back, on the first record?
Yeah, I had some opportunities. I played Mother on the Conan O'Brien show. And then they had these other shows back then, like the Roseanne Barr had a show. I played.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. That was wild. And 120 minutes MTV, lots of stuff.
Oh yeah.
But then the Jay Leno thing and the Craig Ferguson thing came with Blink. Yeah.
Got it. And then what would you say, like, a handful of years later, 5 years later, Massive Manhattan come out? Like, what would you say, like, the highlight moment, or like what was the big takeaway from that record?
Well, I do love the Jay Leno performance of my single from that album. It's called Big Red Heart. And I got together this band that I still have the video somewhere. It's hard to find on the internet, but it's, the band was like such a killer band, and I had these like percussion guys, and the set was amazing, and I just felt like that was like a really great time and great performance. And I got to tour, and some of the countries that were still holding a flame for me. One of them was Holland, and so I would get to travel over there and still play around in Europe, but especially Holland. So but again, the landscape, everything's different, like completely different. And it like you have to have humility. It's like, this is not 96, this is not 2000,
Right.
this is not, like, okay, here we are again. And you have to really dig deep and ask yourself why you're doing this. That's kind of the lessons that I was learning during that time.
Sure. And I'm sure you're still, I mean, as this industry progresses and streaming now and everything else, you kind of have to really adapt, right? I mean, to everything that's kind of moving forward.
You have to, as any creative person, right? You just have to.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you because I am a huge Beatles fan. I grew up on the Beatles. My sister's name is Abby, because my dad was, huge into the Beatles. Awesome. You get to play Paul McCartney's 70th birthday party, and you play a record in entirety. Didn't you played the Ram album like fully through?
Fully through.
And what made you decide on that album? And Like that, I just think that's so fascinating.
Wow. I cannot take credit for that. So there's an artist from Denmark named Tim Christensen, and he's a super famous and amazing songwriter. And he had a band called the Damn Crystals, and he had been a fan of mine, and somehow he found me through a mutual friend, and our mutual friend is Mike Viola, who's an exceptional songwriter and artist.
I know the name Mike Viola.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, wow, he's incredible. He's so talented. And they all being Beatles heads, and I'm a Beatle head, like it just all the stars aligned. Tim Christensen had the idea of doing the Ram album live. So he flew Mike and I over to Denmark, and we all rehearsed for about 4 days, and I was like in heaven because these guys in his band and he were like in Mike every single guitar tone. They were like, oh, I think he had it up to 3.5, and the EQ is this. So I was.
Oh, you were trying to like mimic kind of what McCartney did on the record.
I think everything but the vocals. Like it's impossible to really, kind of recreate. And why would you? We're all our own,
Sure.
But every other thing, like drum parts, tones, tuning the snare, guitar, most of the instrumental stuff was note for note. And I got to get really excited. I mean, I got to get really into it where I was basically singing the harmonies of Linda McCartney.
Wow. Oh yeah, because that was a record he did with Linda McCartney.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'm gonna go sharp because I don't know if you know this, but like there's some tapes going around of just her singing for a while. There was she's really
and it wasn't really pre-auto-tune days.
Pre-auto-tune days. It's got a thing, I wouldn't want to auto-tune, but I had a blast like going slightly sharp on that note. Hoping someone would notice that I did my diligence, like
just really study exactly what she was doing. I love that.
Yeah, it's fun.
That is so cool. As we kind of continue down your journey here, Wax and Gold was a record you put out in 2015, I believe. What was the big kind of takeaway from that record?
Well, let's see. Now I was completely on my own. I think I'd put it out on a Woody Hollow Records, which is just basically my own little record label. And I did a pledge music campaign for it. I had just become a mother, so the album before it, Master Manhattan, was all about waiting to adopt our child.
Okay.
Songs about like Angel, Won't You Come Down, and like what's it going to be like when we become parents, and then Wax and Gold was basically, I'm a mom now, and I have this beautiful adopted baby, and he's from Ethiopia. And all of these songs were, wow, it's such a different album for me. They were about family and the tapestry of family. Like, since we have this child who's from Ethiopia, and I'm from Oregon, and my husband's from California, like, how does this even work? I was really trying to kind of just simplify and think about like songs about family. And the album's really simple. I have one song in there that's like 2 chords, and I'd never done that before. I always like would shudder, like, oh, it's got to be complicated, or it's got to be a left turn, or it's got to be quirky. But these were songs of like real minimal cleverness.
Okay.
And there's some songs that I absolutely like love, and then there's, I mean, as a whole, I think it's just a real like straight down the middle album, and that's fine. I feel like I'm really proud of it, and I think it sounds great. Kevin Salem played and produced and mixed it, and it just sounds gorgeous.
That's amazing. And then would you say that kind of, like, because now you're kind of full circle in the moment of like your mom was a music teacher, and now you kind of started like a music school, right? I mean, well, with Modern Burn-Ins, that was more reimagined songs, or tell me about that one a little bit real quick.
So a lot of bands, when they have like a 20-year anniversary of their hit album, and
right,
they don't own their master recordings, which I didn't. So Island Records owns the master recordings forever and ever and ever. I've tried to get them back. They're like, no. So
like a Taylor Swift deal.
Something like that. But I'm not Taylor Swift. I don't have like the guns. But I decided, instead of what most bands do, they do a sound alike, like a re-record, to do a switcheroo. Like if you get a licensing opportunity, you just hand them the one that you own. So that
Sure. Well, yeah, it makes sense. It's your
yeah,
song, right?
great business idea. And I'm the worst business person in the world. So I decided, well, that album already exists. Why, So I decided to change it up and do a reimagining. And this is during 2016 when we all thought we were going to have the next female president, and then
Oh, yes, sure.
changed. And I decided to open it up to like, let's make it a girl power album, and invited some of my favorite singers to join me. And it felt kind of like a tribute album, except I'm not dead. Like, it was like, yay, celebrate me. It was really fun. And all the women that I had singing on them were like, on the songs, were really amazing and positive. And it became a really fun experience.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And it was just, you just grabbed some of your favorite singers and said, hey, or some of your favorite people, and just put
Yeah.
them all on the record.
Yeah, totally.
That's beautiful. Okay. Well, I'm curious to see where you kind of were in like end of 2019, right? Obviously this pandemic hits, the world changes up for everybody. Did you already have your music house going at this point, or was this something that started due to everything else that kind of happened?
Okay. I did have it started. I had already started teaching. When I got off the road with Blue Man Group, I wanted to, give back. And I love music theory so much, and I love kids. So I started
Mhm.
teaching kids, and I realized that there wasn't like inspiring educational content out there. I had been on the road and talked to so many fans. They'd come up to me and say, I would have studied music, but my teacher was mean, or they were boring, or I got scared or discouraged. And so that had always been in my brain. And I wanted to create content while I taught that
Mhm.
would help kids and all ages feel empowered, feel like they can go out on stage and, express themselves. And I have a real passion for like helping performers like really dig deep and find their fire. And then I love music theory, so I combined all these songs while I was teaching, and they started dropping from the sky. They say like, write what you know, and I was like, well, I know music, and so I'm writing songs about music. I'm trying to coin this phrase, it's music that teaches music.
I like that.
Yeah, and it's like, this is like schoolhouse rock, but it's not about verbs or grammar or politics. It's about music theory. Oops, there goes my little light. Um, so I I started these songs. I had a big collection of them, but I didn't know when to put them out because
Mhm.
there's always some other Tracy Bonham thing to do. So they just sat and they sat and they sat, and they were almost pretty much mixed and done. And so when COVID hit, and I had been touring, and I've been touring with this amazing jazz bassist named Rene Hart,
Mhm.
and he and I started talking about what to do after this tour, because it was like March 15th,
Oh,
2020, and we're on the empty flight home
wow. How
from
bizarre
LA.
was that? Like,
It
because
was
at this point, like, the virus was a thing, right? I mean, there's chatter about it. Well, you were on tour prior, like you were coming home from a tour.
yeah, home from, but we had started the tour March 6th, so it was already a thing, and we were like, I don't know if we should do it. I don't know. And
Oh.
my booking agent would be like, you're still selling tickets. And we were like, I don't know. And it was really conflicting because I didn't want to leave my son. We were in Brooklyn, and I was like, what if I'm gone? And what if I can't get home? And what if
Mhm.
he's not safe? It was one of the hardest decisions, even up till the night before we left on the flight on March 6th. I was like, I'm not sure if we should go.
Mhm.
But I reached out on Instagram and stuff, and I talked to fans. It was the first time I'd ever done this where I'm like, I need help, people, and
Mhm.
my fans, especially some moms who are like rock moms and stuff, they're like, you got to do it. So I did it. And yeah, we were coming home, and you know, COVID was in our rear view mirror like the whole time. And we were closing down venues. We were the last people to play at Hotel Cafe in LA. We were the last people to
Wow.
play here. We had amazing shows though. Like these people who came out were like diehards, and it was such a beautiful experience.
So
And
you didn't see, like, I guess my question would be, did you, because it was a thing in the sense that like people knew it was happening.
Yeah.
And did you have like a night where, okay, it's a sellout, or we're expecting X amount of people to show up and only a third or half?
Right.
Because people were worried. Like, was that happening yet?
For sure. Like, well, it started off with a bang. I mean, Seattle was great. It was low. We were expecting to do like way more, but it still was good. And then Portland was sold out. That was amazing. But then it was like, oh, my hometown, Eugene, numbers start to, now this is like March 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. Then, then it started to get really weird because now things, I mean, it happened so rapidly, at least in our minds, because we were not in the know, right?
Sure.
March 10th, 11th, 12th shows were like on the brink, like, should we cancel? No, let's just do it. And we had a really small audience in Santa Rosa. But, and then by LA, our opening band had canceled because they were COVID really scared. They had some, I guess somebody had an immunity, like a health thing
issue or something. Yeah.
So it was just like, we're just going, we're just going to do this, and we're here, and we might as well play and play our best. So it was sad. And by the end, LA's show was just like, we weren't touching anything. We had like Clorox wipes and whatever, hand sanitizer and like, it was hard. I want to socialize. I have family in the audience, and it was like so confusing to know what to do. And we're really lucky. Like, I didn't get sick. I think Rene did get sick, but I don't know if it was because of the show or the airport or what. But and luckily he's okay. But like, I got very lucky, and so anyway, on the flight home, it was like, okay, well, we're not going to be touring for a while. This is a real deal. And as much as I wanted to record the new songs I was debuting on these for these shows, I was like, you know what? I've got a whole album plus in the can of like all of these Schoolhouse Rocky kids music theory songs. I just want to put this album out. And then I wanted to kind of create more of the visual, like Schoolhouse Rock is very visual.
Sure.
These songs are cool, but they need more. They need the visual. So that's when we started to do like more than just an album.
Okay. And is that what the Young Maestros Volume 1 will be? Is that those songs?
Yeah, it'll be 11 songs, Volume 1, because there's more. There's like, I'm really hitting my stride with this material. Those will be those songs. And then what we're trying to do right now is get the visual aspects and the videos. And, I'm teaching classes with my private schools now on Zoom and stuff, but eventually I want to kind of build that, and I want to teach and kind of create this curriculum that's for more than that. Maybe schools want to license it. Maybe there's going to be opportunities for more.
I love that. And with the record, are they all songs catered to children and kind of in that teaching realm, or like were they just songs that you had written and were like, yeah, let's put them out and kind of put a new spin on them? I don't explain to me what's the feel and the vibe of the record.
Okay. Well, I do feel like it's an all ages thing. It is for the young at heart. So, it can be for, I call it the young music enthusiasts. That's my new favorite. Like, that would be my demographic, the young music enthusiasts, but that can be of all ages. Like, there's songs that teach you how to play a song. Like, it actually has instructions on the fingerings on how to play the black keys of the piano.
Oh, wow.
And it's a beautiful song. It's a timeless melody. It's called All the Blackbirds. And it's a timeless melody. I almost thought like, okay, wait, I'm ripping this off maybe, but I don't know. It has very familiar sounds to it. It's written all the black keys of the piano, which is, for those musoids out there, it's like a pentatonic scale. And you just go by the fingerings, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1, 4, 5, 3, and you're learning how to play the song. So any age can do that. Like, you could be 80 and want to learn how to play a song on the piano, or you could be 3.
Right.
So it does it's hard to actually target, right? But we're kind of going for like this kids genre thing, which is new to me. And it's not really like I want to go out and play birthday parties. I hate to say it, but
right.
I do want.
But you can play matinee shows.
that's my dream, is like matinee shows and then a Tracy Bonham thing at night. That would be like
Oh, that would be rad.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's some people, like my friend Lisa Loeb is doing that. She's doing like both kids and grown up music.
Yeah,
I know
she's put out a handful of children's records.
Yeah.
I've actually interviewed quite a few people in the children's music genre, which I always find fascinating because a lot of them come from, night rock clubs and doing the grind and the tour, and they're like, I love this. I play at noon on a Saturday, like, and everybody's super into it and they want to dance and they want to have fun.
There's that too. Like, I have to say, I think more so in the classroom. I'm not sure about stage and audience yet, but in the classroom, what I see with their like letting go of inhibitions, or they don't even have inhibitions yet, some of them, like, and for me, I get to be goofy and I don't have to be cool. Like, this is way more fun. I had one moment where I had a 4-year-old singing at the top of his lungs one of my songs, and he looked like he was enraptured. And I was like, this is better than any stadium hockey arena show I've played ever in my life.
Wow.
I see this one 4-year-old who's like impassioned. I'm like, this is where it's at.
I love that. That's amazing. And then with it, it's music that teaches kids music. I love that tagline.
Yeah.
And is it specific instruments? I mean, you're talking about the piano and the black keys, or is it you can learn kind of anything, or where's the focus lie?
Well, I'll just get out my album right here and I'll just look at the titles. Well, the one song does teach you how to play the piano in that song. The other songs are not geared towards playing a specific instrument. In fact, there's one song, the first song on the album, it's called Me Symphony, and it's about forgetting all your instruments and learning that you can make music without an instrument. Like, the whole setup is like, I lost my tuba in Aruba, I lost my piano in Indiana, but
I love it.
I had to use my hand, my body, and to make music. And basically the message there is like, you don't have to have everything just perfect. You can just go out and wing it. You are your own instrument. It's empowerment, all rolled into one. And then I do have a song called I Like Big Beats, which is a takeoff of a song by Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Sure.
So it does teach the drums a little. So I'm going to do a little something for you. It goes, I like big beats and I cannot hide all the pleasure that I get inside from hearing that big bass drum, the one that goes like boom, boom. And it goes through the bass drum, the snare, the hi-hat. And
oh, wow.
So that's fun.
That is so cool. Because I just, in the beginning of the pandemic, my young son has autism. He's 4, and he just like gets hyper focused on things. And like, I didn't want him to he was kind of getting hyper focused on the iPad and the Nintendo. And I'm like, but he likes, banging on stuff. So we got him an electric drum kit because I'm like, I don't want the neighbors to go nuts.
Yeah.
So and I've been trying to teach him. I'm not a drummer by any means, but it's something that I've always find fascinating. And I love that. Like, it teaches kind of the kids like, oh, here's what the kick sounds like, the snare, and I've been trying to figure out a safe way to give them some sort of drum lessons, so to speak, because it's hard when you're doing it over Zoom. You try to do it over Zoom when you can't play along because of latency issues. And it's like,
the sound through the computer of the drums. Yeah, I bet that's really hard.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to send you an album and then he can learn. I mean, because it's really basic. So it's just bass drum, snare drum, tom-toms, and hi-hat.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. That would be great. That would be so special. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much, Tracy, for talking with me for this amount of time. I really, really appreciate it. This has been so much fun. You have such an incredible story. I do have one more question. I want to know, do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Yes, I do. I have the advice of do it for the right reason. Because don't do it for fame. Don't do it for money. Do it because you love it. There may be opportunities for immediate stardom, YouTube, whatever it is, social media and stuff, but if you don't have your heart in the right place, and if you're just doing it because you want like accolades or people liking you or smashing that subscribe button, then it's going to become empty really quickly. So I would say dig deep into why you were doing something, kind of like that Rene Rilke letters to a young poet or whatever. It's like, if you feel that you would not survive not doing your art, then that's a little drastic, but do it because you love and you have to do it.